Do not shoot the messenger. Listen to the message.
Pop quiz. Who's the whitest prophet in history? You're probably thinking Joseph Smith, founder of Mormonism, right? What if I told you there's a prophet out there who's so white he makes Joseph Smith look like Malcolm X? He's so white he makes a bowl of vanilla ice cream yell, "Get him out of here, he's blinding me!" He's so white his 9-year-old child bride didn't need a nightlight. What if I also told you that this pale, pasty white prophet had black slaves and referred to Ethiopians as raisin heads? Would you call him a racist? Or would you give him yet another free pass because our expectations automatically drop to the floor whenever we discuss the Prophet of Islam? Many people who haven't read the Muslim sources assume that Muhammad was dark-skinned, but Arabs are classified as Caucasians and they can exhibit a variety of shades and tones. So if we want to know what Muhammad looked like, we'll have to go through some of the descriptions of his appearance found in the Hadith. Now, if Muhammad were sitting in a crowd of his fellow Arabs, how would we spot him? Sahih al-Bukhari, number 63. Narrated Anas bin Malik, while we were sitting with the Prophet in the mosque, a man came riding on a camel. He made his camel kneel down in the mosque, tied its foreleg, and then said, "Who amongst you is Muhammad?" At that time, the Prophet was sitting amongst us, leaning on his arm. We replied, "This white man reclining on his arm." "Hey, which one of you is Muhammad?" "This white Tom Willis-looking white guy leaning on his white arm, that's who." But let's keep reading about a prophet who makes the Brady Bunch look like NWA. Sahih Muslim, 6081. It was narrated that Abu Juhayfa said, "I saw the messenger of Allah with a white complexion and some white hairs." White complexion with white hairs. Who knew that Anderson Cooper was a 7th century prophet? Sahih Muslim 6071. It was narrated from Al-Jurairi from Abu at-Tufail. I said to him, "Did you see the messenger of Allah?" He said, "Yes, he was white with an elegant face." This guy's so white he makes Queen Elizabeth look like Queen Latifah. And the Muslim sources go out of their way to remind us how white Muhammad was. They tell us about the whiteness of his shins, and the whiteness of his thigh, and the whiteness of his leg, and the whiteness of his stomach, and the whiteness of his forearms, and the whiteness of his armpits, and the whiteness of his cheeks. Based on these descriptions, a friend of mine who's a police sketch artist was able to put together a drawing of Muhammad. Have you seen this man? Kind of blends in with the whiteness of the paper. On a side note, to all my jihadi viewers, I can't figure out if this counts as a cartoon of Muhammad or not, but I don't really care. So, Muhammad was whiter than a bowl of Cool Whip. But when he wasn't busy being scooped onto a slice of apple pie, he was setting an example for his followers by keeping a tight rein on all his black slaves. Sahih al-Bukhari, 7263. Narrated Umar, I went to the house of the Prophet, and behold, Allah's messenger was staying in a mashraba, and a black slave of Allah's messenger was at the top of its stairs. I said to him, "Tell the Prophet that here is Umar bin al-Khattab." Then he admitted me. Sahih al-Bukhari, 6161. Narrated Anas bin Malik, Allah's messenger was on a journey, and he had a black slave called Anjasha, and he was driving the camels very fast, and there were women riding on those camels. Allah's messenger said, "Waihaka, O Anjasha, drive slowly the camels with the glass vessels," i.e. the women. Here's one about a black slave who was shot to death while unloading Muhammad's luggage. Sunan an-Nasai 3858. It was narrated that Abu Huraira said, "We were with the messenger of Allah in the year of Khaybar, and we did not get any spoils of war except for wealth, goods, and clothes. Then a man from Banu ad-Dubayb, who was called Rifa bin Zayd, gave the messenger of Allah a black slave who was called Middam. The messenger of Allah set out for Wadi al-Qura. When we were in Wadi al-Qura, while Middam was unloading the luggage of the messenger of Allah, an arrow came and killed him. The people said, 'Congratulations, you will go to paradise.' But the messenger of Allah said, 'No, by the one in whose hand is my soul, the cloak that he took from the spoils of war on the day of Khaybar is burning him with fire.'" Just to clarify, Muhammad had sex with a 9-year-old girl, robbed caravans, and beheaded hundreds of Jews, but he's good. His black slave, by contrast, grabbed a cloak before the spoils were divided, so he's headed to hell. Welcome to Islam. In Provisions of the Afterlife, pages 30 to 31, Ibn Qayyim al-Jawziyya lists 28 of Muhammad's male slaves and 12 of his female slaves. Some of these slaves were black, some were not. Muhammad renamed one of his black slaves Safina, which means ship. He called his slave Ship because he would load up the slave like a ship and make him carry everything. Muhammad apparently thought that black slaves were worth less than Arab slaves, since he once traded 2 of his black slaves for an Arab slave he wanted to set free because the Arab slave had converted to Islam. We know that Muhammad had sex with his female slaves because, as we've seen in previous videos, Muhammad, the whitest prophet in history, bought, owned, sold, and traded black African slaves. He referred to Ethiopians as raisin heads. He told his followers that Satan looks like a black man and that a thin-legged black man would eventually destroy the Kaaba, Islam's holiest site. But Muhammad was also an expert in the exciting field of dream interpretation. And if we study his interpretations of dreams, we can understand how to interpret our own dreams. For instance, suppose you fall asleep one night and you have a dream about a black woman. How should you interpret your dream? Fortunately for us, the Prophet Muhammad has the answer. Jami at-Tirmidhi, 2290. Salim bin Abdullah narrated from his father about the dream of the Prophet, who said, "I saw a black woman with unkempt hair going out of Al-Madinah until she stood in Mahya, and it is Al-Jufa. So I interpreted that to be an epidemic in Al-Madinah that would spread to Al-Jufa." We have some added commentary below this hadith. When the Messenger of Allah emigrated to Al-Madinah, he found the inhabitants of the place contending with an epidemic-like spread of fever. It was a particularly disturbing phenomenon for the emigrants. The Prophet, therefore, supplicated to Allah to move the epidemic to Jufa. Allah accepted the supplication. The epidemic was shown to the Prophet in the form of a black woman with unkempt hair. According to Muhammad, a black woman in a dream represents the spread of a sickness or plague. Sahih al-Bukhari, 7038. Narrated Abdullah bin Umar. The Prophet said, "I saw in a dream a black woman with unkempt hair going out of Al-Madinah and settling in Mahya, i.e. Al-Jufa. I interpreted that as a symbol of epidemic of Al-Madinah being transferred to that place, Al-Jufa." We have a little more.
After watching this, black Muslims have a decision to make. I am not here to make any decisions for you. I am merely here to show you the message. It is up to you what you do with this afterwards. To my black Muslim brothers and sisters, I love you, and you make your own decisions.